more US troops have been attacked and more US troops have been injured in the Middle East. Now, I'm starting to sound like a broken record. US troops are getting attacked in the Middle East. US troops are getting injured. This is the current situation of the US force posture in the Middle East, to expect more and more attacks as long as the Israel war continues. Now, thankfully, there's no casualties. Casualties as in no soldiers were taken out, only injuries. So we're going to be focusing on Syria and Iraq and a little bit of the Red Sea. Okay, let's start with Iraq. Victory Base was attacked, and so was Baghdad Airport. Now, Victory Base was attacked by two separate rockets. One rocket got taken out by the base's defense system, but another one did make impact. Now, all it did was destroy a facility. Other than that, there were no injuries. The report also says the damages on the facilities are very minimal, so again, nothing crucial was actually taken out. So, I know you guys are all going to ask me this, what the heck are we still doing in Iraq? Well, as I always say on this channel, regional security is the answer you're typically going to get on your mainstream information when it comes to looking into Iraq. Beyond that, you can get into not allowing Iraq to destabilize again or not allow Iraq to get any more Iranian influence to where the whole country could collapse once again like it did back in 2014. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether or not we should be in Iraq. I'll leave that up to you guys, but those are the speculations and reasons as to why we're still in Iraq. Now, US troops did get injured in Syria, where most people are still not aware we're in Syria, so here's what's happening. Now, two separate attacks happened in Syria on two separate locations. We are heavily involved in Syria, and when I say we, I mean the US military. It's just very covert, but you don't hear about it a lot. You have an array of troops out there. The regular US Army, you have Marines, you have Special Operations, the Navy's out there, so everyone is involved in containing Syria to hopefully not spill over into other nations and to create a power vacuum within Syria. Okay, so Al-Tanf base was actually attacked by two separate drones. Again, one of them was taken out, but another one did manage to make impact to the ground to cause injuries. Now, there was no specification on what the injuries were. All we know is that it was very minor and again, not too bad. You also have Conoco base that was attacked, but again, not a lot of information was provided other than it was a rocket attack, so we can assume that there were no injuries or nothing too bad happened over there. Now, if you are at all surprised by any of this, you need to understand these threats have been coming in from Iran and Iranian proxies that this is going to happen. The US military, especially in Syria, has been in direct action roles for the last few years where they are actively going out and looking for enemy personnel. I mean, just recently there was a drone flying around in northern Syria, belonged to Turkey. Turkey said it wasn't theirs, and the US military had to take it out with an F-16. And if you're asking me why we're in Syria, it's a very complex answer, mainly to stop those really bad guys that start with the letter I and end with the letter S. It's also to contain Russia from expanding into the Middle East and to ensure they are stayed at check within Syria. And also you have the base like Al-Tanf, which is actually trying to control border regions to make sure that these proxy units are not using the borders to literally border hop and to confuse allied forces to try taking out these proxy units. So it makes a ton of sense that Al-Tanf base did get attacked because again, you have Hezbollah in the region, you have other factions who are trying to get into Jordan to try getting into Palestine to cause a disturbance. The closer they can get to Israel, the better for these proxy units. The main deterrent to these proxy units is of course the US military. Now again, if you're saying we shouldn't even be involved in this war, we've always had an issue with these proxy units beyond the war in Israel. Now we're just in a situation where we're probably going to see more attacks from the US to the proxies and from the proxies to the US. So in Syria, at least, it makes a lot of sense. And if you're wondering why Iraq is a big threat, it's because they also use Iraq for supply trains to go from Iraq into Syria into Jordan. Now, Iraq has always had plenty of Iranian influence and proxy units who love to mess with the US military and Iraqi forces. So again, totally expect more attacks or at least some more action to happen as long as this war is prolonged. But like I said at the beginning of the video, we're also going to focus a little bit on the Red Sea. The US Navy, as much as I love to pick on them, you know, I was in the US Army, but I got to be honest with you, the US Navy is holding it down for Israel and US forces in the Middle East right now. You have the Houthi faction in Yemen. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that group on YouTube. Nonetheless, they managed to launch some projectiles towards Israel. At least that's the speculation. So what happened was you have a US Navy ship that managed to intercept an attack either towards the ship ship, but they're saying it looked like it was heading more north, heading towards Israel, where they managed to intercept missiles and drones. So if you have no idea who the Houthi are, they are located in Yemen. They are a sizable force. They're mostly at war with the Saudis. So understand, the Houthis, what are they doing all the way in Yemen, and why are they attacking Israel? Well, they have ties to Iran. Whenever you see those random news stories that Iranian ship has been captured with arms in it, or Iranian ship has a ton of money heading to this random location, typically the Houthis are the recipients of these logistics. It's been proven time and time again that they are loyal to Iran. They've said it themselves. And again, don't take these guys as a ragtag mountain force. They're actually rather sizable. And I'm not an expert in missile defense systems. I'll be the first one to admit that, but I'm friends with a lot of people who are. And I asked the question, do these guys actually have the capability to reach Israel? Yes, they do. However, due to the U.S. Navy on high alert in the entire region, due to Saudi Arabia being a little bit of a buffer, and due to the Iron Dome, highly unlikely that anything from Yemen would actually reach Israel. And there would be plenty of warning signs that you have something coming from the Yemen region or heading again towards Israel. The main point being is that the U.S. military is heavily involved in the defense and the offense of the Israeli war. Not so much focusing on what's happening in Gaza, but focusing on outside elements towards Iran. Now, I keep getting asked, are we going to go to war with Iran, the big country of Iran, the government of Iran? No, even though they are a mortal enemy, and we always have said, Iran, if you do something dumb, we're going to attack you. What we are at war with is Iran's proxy units and their little team. There are a lot of these factions like the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, a lot of these factions who don't necessarily all work together, and to be honest with you, don't necessarily all line up together with religious views and other ideologies, but one thing they can all agree on is they would love to take out U.S. troops and, of course, Israel. Now, as far as escalation of force, the U.S. military has not indicated who exactly did these attacks. You have some small factions, I'm not going to say their names on here, who have claimed to attack the U.S. military because, again, they wear this as a badge of honor. But when you have the actual social medias of these factions and big Iran saying, time is up and we're going to attack you, I mean, the evidence is all right there. And plus, these factions have made sworn statements and public statements that they will always and go after the West, being U.S. military, being Israel, and of course, France. Now, these are the things to look out for. What will be the U.S. response? Are they going to be more on the offensive? Or are they going to be more on the defensive? Something else we need to consider is how much on the attack will the U.S. Navy be in specific? Because the U.S. Navy has said, look, we are prepared and we are already getting our targets ready in Syria, in Iraq. But it looks like the U.S. Navy right now is playing a massive role in the defense of Israel. You have 2 carrier groups in the Mediterranean, but it's interesting to see you had a boat in the Red Sea who was prepared to defend Israel even as far away as near Yemen. So unfortunately, it looks like things are getting way worse than better. Obviously, we want peace. Now, there have been 2 U.S. hostages that have been traded back into Israeli soil, and these were American hostages, a mother and a daughter, which is a great thing. But it goes to show this might be mind games from Hamas. Is Hamas only releasing U.S. citizens to prove that they're willing to work with the U.S., but the U.S. is working against us? Or did Hamas just randomly pick out of the litter and say, okay, you guys go, and they happen to be U.S. citizens? I'll leave that up to you guys. Nonetheless, everything is getting quite complicated. You also have indications that Europe and other countries are trying to stop Israel from actually going into Gaza. But if we all know how insurgencies work, or these small guerrilla groups work, air campaigns, they don't work. I mean, you even look at Vietnam, you can keep going as much as you want on these guerrilla groups, but eventually boots on the ground is the solution. So we'll see what happens, because Israel's #1 goal, regardless of the things that are happening in Iraq and Syria, regardless if U.S. troops are getting injured, Israel is going after Hamas, and that is their #1 mission.